What if greatest threat to democracy didn't arrive with tanks or weapons, but with the apps you use every single day? Hello everyone, welcome back to Upload Decoded. Imagine living in a world where every search you make, every video you watch, every post you like, and every news article you read is quietly helping someone understand how you think. Not to know you better as a person, but to predict what you will do next. This isn't the plot of a science fiction movie. It's central concern raised by the Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff, who introduced the concept of surveillance capitalism. According to Zuboff, democracy depends on citizens who are free to think, question, and make informed decisions. But surveillance capitalism depends on collecting massive amounts of personal data to predict and increasingly influence human behavior. So today's question is not simply about technology, it's much bigger. Can democratic institutions survive when a handful of technology companies possess extraordinary control over information, personal data, public discourse, political communication, and increasingly AI infrastructure? Let's find out. So, to answer that question, we first need to understand what surveillance capitalism actually is. Think about the last thing you search for on Google. Maybe it was a restaurant, a new phone, a university, a direction, or a nearby place. To you, it feels like a simple search, but behind the scenes, something much bigger is happening. According to Shoshana Zuboff, surveillance capitalism is an economic system built on transforming our everyday experiences into valuable data. It begins with the human experience. Every click, every search, every location, every pause while watching a video becomes behavioral data. That data is processed by powerful prediction algorithms designed to understand what we are likely to do next. Over time, those predictions can be used to influence behavior by recommending certain videos, displaying personalized advertisements, or deciding which content appears first on our screens. And ultimately, those predictions generate profit. This model powers many of those largest digital platforms, including Google, Meta, YouTube, TikTok, Amazon, and Microsoft. According to Zuboff, these companies often collect far more behavioral data than is necessary simply to provide their services. She calls this extra information behavioral surplus, the raw material that fuels surveillance capitalism. But why should this matter to democracy? Because democracy depends on something that cannot exist without freedom, independent citizens. Healthy democracies don't begin at the ballot box, they begin in the minds of citizens. For democracy to function, people need the freedom to think independently. They need privacy, reliable information, free and fair elections, and equal opportunities to participate in public life. But today's digital environment is very different from the one previous generations experienced. Instead of everyone receiving the same information, many online platforms personalize what each person sees. Recommendation algorithms suggest different videos. Political advertisements can be targeted to specific audiences. News feeds are customized. Search results may vary from one person to another. This raises an important question. If algorithms continuously shape what we read, watch, and discuss, how independent are our choices? Zuboff isn't saying that technology makes decisions for us. Rather, she asks us to consider whether systems designed to predict and influence behavior can gradually affect the conditions under which democratic decisions are made. And this brings us to an even bigger realization. The companies behind these platforms are no longer just technology companies. Today, digital platforms have become part of our daily lives. When we need information, many of us turn to Google. To connect with friends and family, we use Meta's platforms. Political discussions increasingly happen on X. Millions receive news and education through YouTube. Businesses and governments rely on Amazon's cloud services. And Microsoft plays a growing role in enterprise software and artificial intelligence. According to Zuboff, these companies now function as essential infrastructure for communication. In other words, they are no longer just offering digital services, they provide many of the spaces where societies exchange information, debate ideas, and form public opinion. When so much communication depends on a relatively small number of platforms, an important democratic question naturally follows: who should set the rules for these digital public spaces? So far, we have explored how surveillance capitalism works, why democracy depends on informed and independent citizens, and why big tech now occupies such an influence positions in modern society. But theory is only one part of the story. In the next section, we will examine real world examples from the United States involving technology platforms, political influence, campaign finance, and broader questions they raise about the democracy in the digital age. Let's begin with one of the world's most influential social media platforms. In 2022, Elon Musk purchased Twitter, later renaming it X. Today, X remains one of the largest online spaces for political discussions. Millions of people, including journalists, politicians, researchers, and ordinary citizens, use it every day to debate public issues. During the 2024 US presidential election cycle, Elon Musk also publicly endorsed Donald Trump and became an active political donor. These events sparked worldwide discussion, not because they prove that one individual can determine election outcomes. There is no evidence for the conclusion. Instead, they raise a broader democratic question. When one person owns a platform where millions of political conversations take place every day, how much influence does that ownership create? This is exactly the kind of question Zuboff encourages us to ask. It's not simply about politics, it's about the relationship between digital platforms, information, and democratic society. But Elon Musk isn't the only example. Long before X dominated headlines, another technology company had already transformed the way billions of people communicate. Meta isn't just Facebook, it also owns Instagram, WhatsApp, and Threads. Together, these platforms connect billions of users across the globe. That level of connectivity is unprecedented in human history. But with such enormous reach comes enormous responsibility. Over the years, Meta has faced repeated public scrutiny. Questions have been raised about political advertising, algorithmic amplification, misinformation, and election integrity. One of the most significant moments came during the Cambridge Analytica controversy in 2018, which brought global attention to the collection and use of personal data in political campaigns. Since then, Meta has introduced numerous measures aimed at improving election security and reducing the harmful content. Yet the broader debate continues. Why? Because many researchers argue that the algorithms designed to maximize user engagement may also amplify emotionally charged content, whether it's anger, fear, or outrage. Not because the algorithms have political opinions, but because emotional content often keeps people engaged longer, and more engagement usually means more advertising revenue. This illustrates one of the Zuboff's central concerns: when commercial incentives shape the information people consume. What does that mean for democracy? Technology companies are one part of the story, but modern political influence doesn't come from the technology alone. It also comes from money. To understand today's political landscape, we also need to understand campaign finance organizations such as AIPAC, along with many other lobbying organizations, political action committees, and super PAC across the United States. I mean, these kind of organizations also available are present in other countries as well as. So, to participate in the political process by supporting candidates and advocating for the particular policy goals. It's important to distinguish this from surveillance capitalism. AIPAC is not a technology company, nor is it a part of Zuboff's definition of the surveillance capitalism. Instead, it represents another form of political influence, one based on lobbying, campaign, financing, and organized advocacy. Today's political environment combines multiple sources of influence: campaign funding, digital advertising, data analytics, social media, recommendation algorithms. Each plays a different role. Together, they create an ecosystem where information moves faster than ever before. The question isn't whether influence exists. Influence has always existed in politics. The question is how digital technology has changed the speed, scale, and precision with which information reaches voters. And all of this leads to perhaps the most important question in Shoshana Zuboff's work: who controls knowledge itself? At the heart of surveillance capitalism lies simple but profound idea. Knowledge is power. Zuboff asks four questions. Who knows? Who decides who knows? Who decides who decides? And finally, who profits? These questions challenge us to think differently about the digital world. Today, organizations that control search engines, recommendation algorithms, AI models, social media feeds, and digital advertising systems also influence how information flows through society. The more these organizations know about us, the greater their ability to predict behavior. And according to Zuboff's, the ability to predict human behavior increasingly becomes a form of economic and potentially political power. In the digital age, knowledge itself has become one of the world's most valuable resources. So, if information has become power and technology companies possess unprecedented amounts of information, does that mean democracy is losing control? Or can democratic societies respond? That's exactly where we'll go in the final part of this video. There we'll explore possible solutions and return to the question we asked at the very beginning: can democracy survive surveillance capitalism? The answer isn't to reject technology. The technology has transformed healthcare, education, communication, and scientific research. The challenge is ensuring that technology progress remains accountable to democratic values. Around the world, governments and policymakers are already taking steps in that direction. New privacy regulations aim to give individuals greater control over their personal data. Transparency requirements encourage technology companies to explain how important algorithms make decisions. Researchers continue developing ethical frameworks for artificial intelligence that emphasize fairness, accountability, and human rights. Competition policies seek to prevent excessive concentration of power within a small number of digital platforms. These efforts don't eliminate every concern, but they represent an important principle. Technology should operate within rules established by democratic societies, not the other way around. As Shoshana Zuboff argues, the future of democracy depends not only on innovation but also on our willingness to govern innovation responsibly. Which brings us back to the question we asked at the very beginning: can democracy survive surveillance capitalism? There is no simple answer. Technology itself is neither good nor bad. Its impact depends on how it is designed, how it is governed, and how society chooses to use it. Surveillance capitalism has undoubtedly changed the relationship between people, technology, and power. but democracies have adapted to major technological revolutions before: printing presses, radio, television, and now artificial intelligence. The question is not whether technology will continue to evolve, it certainly will. The real question is whether our laws, institutions, and public values can evolve just as quickly, because democracy ultimately depends on informed citizens, transparent institutions, and the freedom to think independently. Those principles remain just as important in the digital age as they have always been. So, if this video made you see the digital world from a different perspective, consider sharing it with someone who values thoughtful conversations about the technology and society. Subscribe to Upload Decoded for more videos exploring the intersection of technology, history, geopolitics, and future of our world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.